Welcome to Awesome Movie Year, the podcast where we take a look back at an awesome year for movies, which is every year. I'm Josh Bell, film critic and writer, and I'm joined by my co-host.
I'm Jason Harris, filmmaker, comedian, and I know you're not going to believe me, but we've done this episode 10 times already.
I would believe you, honestly, about that sometimes. I feel like it's an endless loop of awesome movie years.
I'm glad you believe me, because I was going to have to start bringing up facts that he's told me, like how he bedwetted until he was 14 and things like that. So I don't have to bring that stuff up.
No, I don't know how you would know facts about me, having only known me for 30 years. It's a miraculous thing, really. So in this season of Awesome Movie Year, we're talking about the films of 2014, and we're here at our cult classic pick, which is the sci-fi action movie Edge of Tomorrow, starring Tom Cruise and Emily Blunt and directed by Doug Liman. Not the kind of movie that normally achieves the status of cult classic, but I don't remember what else we discussed for this one, but I really feel like this does qualify. This is a movie that didn't quite reach the audience it was meant to reach when it was first released, but has a fervent following that has only grown in the past 11 years. And I think this really does fit the definition, even though it's a much higher budget film than usually you would call a cult classic.
This was on that run before Tom Cruise saved cinema, where he couldn't get a hit, right? Because you look at the movies all in a row that, like, this barely cracked 100 million in the US. And then it's like movies that didn't. Jack Reacher, which now has 17 sequels, right? So I think
Jack Reacher, the Tom Cruise version, only had one sequel, but there's the Jack Reacher TV show that's very popular.
That's a lot then, So what I'm saying is, at this point in time, we underrated, or everybody underrated, what Tom Cruise was capable of, and then they refound him. I think they needed the break from him after the whole Oprah situation, which seems,
right,
given what's going on in the world today, I wish we could go back and just have him jump on Oprah couches.
An innocent time when what we cared about was Tom Cruise jumping on a couch. Yeah. No, it was interesting reading the coverage of this, because you're very right about that. And a lot of the reviews and the commentary on this really focused on that idea of Tom Cruise's image, and is Tom Cruise kind of washed up or over or whatever. He had also had the kind of sci-fi action miss of Oblivion, which you and I were just talking about the other day, which I actually think is quite good and is directed by Joseph Kosinski, who went on, of course, to direct Top Gun Maverick. But that was a movie that didn't make what it was supposed to make at the box office, and also was not well reviewed. This movie, at least, did get very good reviews. And looking at the raw numbers, it doesn't seem like a flop necessarily. It did gross $370.5 million worldwide. As you said, it barely broke 100 million in the US, but Tom Cruise still a very recognizable star all around the world, and people will go see his films. That's on its budget of 178 million. So, you factor in other costs, as that's always the case, advertising, prints, marketing, so on, and it's not considered a success for the studio, but those numbers don't sound terrible.
No, it's not a flop. It's just not, the billion-dollar marker that we've seen from him. But more than that, I think what it is when there's a Tom Cruise movie, it becomes like eventized and part of like the conversation, right, of your everyday life. And I guess this one didn't, although we all had seen it and liked it. So.
Right. Yeah. And this was not, part of a franchise, as we were referencing, the Mission Impossible series was going. There was more to come, but it still was an ongoing popular thing. This wasn't a sequel to some other big Tom Cruise thing like Top Gun Maverick, for example. So it was an unproven new property. It's based on a Japanese novel from 2004 called All You Need Is Kill by Hiroshi Sakurazaka. And they've changed elements of the plot. I have not read the novel, but I know this is one of those movies also that had a million screenwriters and that was being rewritten as they were shooting it. But the basic idea of this war against aliens who've invaded the Earth, and the main character, through contact with some alien, is now stuck in a time loop so that he is able to kind of learn about how to defeat the aliens. And he teams up with another character who had previously or currently, depending on the version, been in the time loop and has the experience to know how to teach him and to know what's going on. That's Emily Blunt's character. And so that is the same. And then we add some extra elements here.
Josh, do you know anything about that book beyond that, or?
No. I mean, I haven't read it. And so all I know about it is really just reading about it from Wikipedia. I mean, I think what's been changed here, other than, of course, the nationality of the main character, who's Japanese in the novel, is the whole aspect that they add here, that Cruz's character is this like public relations figure for the military and is trying to do everything that he can to weasel out of being in combat and then is forced to be on the front lines. I think that's an element that was added for the movie. And the ultimate resolution, which I'm sure we'll talk about later and is maybe not not the strongest aspect of this film, that was all changed. But I have not read the book or read or seen any of the other adaptations.
The character is like what they did for the movie makes perfect sense, right? You want to take the person who is least likely or least capable of succeeding and have that journey to get him to succeed. So, he's still in the military, but doesn't want any part of it. The only way you could have taken it further is if he was like a protester of the military, right? So,
right. I don't know if there's military protests when aliens are invading, right? Who's going to protest like, don't fight the invading aliens?
Other aliens?
Yeah, I suppose. The secret aliens, the shape-shifting aliens who've been living among us the whole time. They're like, damn it, we were supposed to do this invasion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, this is, and it's all going to lead up to it, but like, I think they made so many really great decisions and then one bad decision that brings the whole thing down for me. So.
Right. Although reading about the way that the book ends, it wouldn't have worked here because the idea is that both the main character and Rita, the Emily Blunt character, are stuck together in the time loop. And so the way that the story ends relates to that. And that's not what they're doing here. The idea is she was previously in a time loop and has gotten out of it. So she knows what's going on, but we still have the element where every time things reset, he has to reintroduce himself to her, which I think is also a very effective aspect that they bring to the story here.
Yeah, I mean, and I guess this would probably be the the major star-making performance for Emily Blunt. Sicario was a little before this, I think, right? So, but she really comes off as an action star in this thing.
She does, yeah, to get to that level. I mean, she was certainly very famous before this and had done things like Sicario, but I think that even if this movie wasn't as huge a success as it was meant to be, I do think that helped her to get to that sort of blockbuster position. This movie, even though it didn't make a ton of money, generally was liked by the people who saw it.
A paltry $370 million.
Right. Well, again, as we're saying, from the perspective of a major studio that is spending probably close to $200 million or more on making and marketing this movie, that's just not enough. You're not making enough of a profit. So
poor movie studio.
I know it's really a tough situation to be in, but it did get a B+ cinema score from the audience polling service, and critics quite like this as well. It has a 91% on Rotten Tomatoes, which is really high. I mean, for an action movie, a Tom Cruise action movie, even the Mission Impossible movies, that's right along the lines, I think, of the most popular ones of those. So Manohla Dargis in the New York Times said, in Edge of Tomorrow, Doug Liman brings Tom Cruise's smile out of semi-retirement and also gives him the kind of physical challenges at which he so brilliantly excels. As expected, there are wow-worthy stunts and high-flying bodies in Edge of Tomorrow, which finds its groove after Cage discovers he's on seemingly endless repeat. Eventually, Mr. Liman's eccentricities and the morbidly funny neo-screwball vibe that he establishes are swamped by generic pyrotechnics and noise. That's predictable, given the high studio stakes and the industry's faith in spectacles of destruction. but it doesn't obliterate the movie's pleasures.
Yeah, I mean, that pretty much covers it, right? Like so many right things there. Like Liman is always good at mixing action and comedy. Tom Cruise, underrated as a comedy performer, even though he's got
right. Yeah, there's a lot of reference in that. Yeah.
Right. And this is when he's at his, I mean, I love him when he's like intense collateral Tom Cruise, but like he's also really fun. Even when we did A Few Good Men, and he's got that kind of sly wit to him and everything, you know, he's, I think I was telling you this. I think somehow he became underrated as an actor because he's such a big movie star. And you're like, if you really dig into the stuff that he's done, you're like, Jesus, man, these are some really, really nuanced, strong performances. So you got all these things, and then again, you get to the last 10 minutes, and your dong goes flaccid.
Yeah, it's not the best. I mean, although it's not so terrible, I don't think that it ruins the movie or anything like that.
Close to
it.
But
I think I maybe was less upset with it than you were. But either way, like they've done such a good job leading up to that, I think that you still have a lot of goodwill for it. And I think the comedic aspect is important, but it never goes too comedic. You never get so goofy that you don't understand the stakes. You know, that this is still like, humanity is going to be wiped out by these aliens if we don't figure out how to defeat them. And that's serious. And the characters are focused on the seriousness of it, but we can still have some of that playful comedy too.
That is, one of the really good aspects to this. And like I said, Liman has done more than one movie where he's been able to mix those things together.
Yes. So again, focusing kind of on the Cruise factor, Ty Burr in the Boston Globe said, "There are still a lot of haters out there. It's awfully easy, isn't it? And they may be cheered by the idea of Edge of Tomorrow, a movie in which Tom Cruise is killed hundreds of times in baroque, tragic, comic, and ridiculous ways. That's entertainment? Well, yes, and not just for the schadenfreude. The fact is that this is a pretty good summer kablooey movie, and Cruise is better than pretty good in it. He's still playing a hero who saves the world, but this time with wit and agility and a becoming sense of himself. And yes, a pair of giant machine guns strapped to his arms. Cruise will never be hip, and he's completely lacking in the irony necessary to function in modern pop culture. This is why he's routinely mocked. But he knows no one does uncomplicated heroism better than him, and for once, he's having fun with it."
Well, turns out a lot of that was wrong. I mean, it's interesting to think about like how far of outside of like the good graces he was as like A-list movie star, and for him to get all the way back there, you know, and become the center of pop culture again. And maybe the last real movie star, as we've talked about here, but he definitely can take himself too seriously. I think less is more with him. If you were a PR person, keep him to interviews where he's talking about process and film, because we know he's a film lover, and don't have him say things how he thinks that therapy isn't real. Like that's probably good, you know? So, and they seem to have righted the track with, he's rehabbed his whole image.
Right, which is crazy because he's still a nutso Scientologist and still believes all that stuff. And people just, I think maybe because it's those PR people have successfully gotten him to downplay it or just leave it out of the conversation, that people, not that they forget, but it's just like, oh, that's a sort of quirk of his personality, and that's we gloss over it.
I mean, I reference like The World Today. It's like, oh, this guy believes some weird things, but he doesn't go out and just like attack people like so many assholes do today. And he's not like intolerant of seemingly anyone, even though he clearly believes what he believes. So like the line has been moved so far that like, if you're like, he's jumping on the couch and saying therapy's bad, now you'd just be like, cool, when's the next Mission Impossible? You know?
Right. And I do think you say he's become kind of the center of pop culture or whatever, as this review says that he will not be. But I mean, and I think, yes, you're right, especially cinematically, he's got this whole narrative about saving the box office and whatnot. But I do think there's this sort of like earnest dorkiness to him that he's not, quote, hip per se, right? I mean, and that's what people like, that he just like genuinely is really, really enthused about stunts and, cameras and stuff like you were talking about. And we can enjoy that about him, but he's not, quote, cool maybe in the same way that other movie stars are.
He's just a champion of cinema, right? Like,
Right.
the motion smoothing videos, how to
Right.
get rid of
Yes,
those.
exactly.
And,
Yes.
The fight to make sure that Maverick got into cinema, right? Like, he's one of the last real champions of the film going experience, which we all crave.
And he lives on nothing but popcorn. Don't forget that.
Yeah, apparently.
Is that true?
He's always got those pictures. No, but he's always taking pictures of himself going to the theater, and he's always got a big.
I mean, I do love that. And I know, having seen him on Inside the Actors Studio, which I would recommend, talk about two people who really take themselves seriously, Lipton and
right.
Cruise. But, I mean, he's kind of like us. Clearly, we're like him in that, we basically try to watch a movie every day. I think between the three of us, we all do that. And I know he does that. And that's pretty cool. He could be doing anything he wants. And when he's like, I'd just like to watch a movie every day, that's pretty great. So.
Yeah, I always think that that's great when you see, I mean, it's sometimes it's shocking how many people who make movies don't seem to really like movies or bother watching them or paying attention to them. It's always fun when you realize someone is like that. You see celebrities who have Letterboxd accounts and they're logging tons of movies or whatever. And that's, refreshing in a way. So, yeah, I totally agree with you on that.
Who's the best celebrity Letterboxd follow?
I tend not to follow celebrities on Letterboxd, but I see other people doing it or liking their reviews. Charlie XCX is really active on Letterboxd. She watches tons of movies. I think I've mentioned.
I like Paul Schrader.
Well, Paul Schrader's not actually on there. He's just on Facebook, and people like copy and paste his crazy.
Is
Facebook
that not
comments.
him, the Paul Schrader on Letterboxd?
I don't think so. I don't know. I have to look, but I know he's a big Facebook guy, and he's always. I can't endorse Paul Schrader's. Paul Schrader recently posted extensively on Facebook about how AI should be reviewing movies. So I cannot endorse that.
That's where you're. That's what the line on Paul Schrader is. I feel like
that's the most recent line. If we're talking about his comments on, his film criticism or whatever,
he's still awesome. I mean, this is totally off track, but Schrader started as a film critic, so for him to say that is pretty unique and everything.
I know it's terrible, but he posts awful looking AI images on Facebook, and he's gone all off the deep end on that. So anyway, that's not really what
I follow Jim Cummings. I follow Sean Baker, who don't really give reviews. They just say what they've watched. Obviously Scorsese, but he's not on that much. So if you have any good celebrity follows, I'm at Go for Jason on Letterboxd. Let me know.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's the people like that. Well, Jim Cummings and Sean Baker are very active. When Scorsese, that's like a publicity stunt, But the people who are on
that
there,
guy never watches movies.
No, but he doesn't log every movie he watches on Letterboxd. But I think the people who are on there, where I know like Charlie XCX, it was like people had to discover her account or whatever, or people who have been on there like Iowa Debary and Sarah Sherman from SNL, who were on there before they were famous and then just kind of stayed on there. I think those are the ones where like people are, actually dedicated.
Scorsese was Letterboxd before there was a Letterboxd, because how many like history of cinema documentaries has he made?
Right. I'm not questioning Scorsese's dedication to cinema or Tom Cruise's for that matter. He will never be on Letterboxd, I'm sure. Tom Cruise. But anyway, I did want to get one not super favorable perspective. So finally, Todd McCarthy in The Hollywood Reporter said, a narratively ambitious sci-fi actioner, Edge of Tomorrow plays out a familiar alien invasion apocalypse drama in a way that, through repetition, allows humanity to learn from its mistakes and have a shot at surviving until another movie's monsters from outer space show up. Picking yourself up to fight another day might work for the characters, but battle fatigue eventually sets in for viewers as Doug Liman's film keeps folding back on itself time and time again. Although the humor helps, the Groundhog Day-like repetition gets tedious. It makes you feel more like a hamster than a groundhog, or rather a hamster's wheel, going round and round over and over again. Unfortunately, the final stretch becomes dramatically unconvincing and visually murky.
So I'm going to agree with that last part clearly, but the rest of it, I think Liman and Macquarie and the Butterworth brothers and all these screenwriters did a really good job of keeping me interested in like, hey, here's a familiar battle sequence, but we're going this way with it. And here's why this failed. And now, we have to put this obstacle in there. And they do ratchet up the personal stakes, especially when Cruise and Blunt get to the farmhouse and they find the helicopter. And then he explains to her why he is avoiding them taking the helicopter.
Right. Yeah. I mean, I think as in any time loop movie, like the repetition is the point, and being able to find those variations is what makes the movie good. And so I totally disagree. And in fact, I think the movie, even before the very end, which is definitely muddled and murky, as he says here, like at the point where the time looping stops, it definitely loses some steam as a movie, and it loses some of its sense of fun. So I totally disagree. I think the time looping and the way they play with the repetition and how it's approached differently each time is the best part of this movie.
I agree with you about when it stops, it loses part of the fun, but progression wise, you have to get there, right? Like you have to be like, hey, act 3, we have to go all in and the stakes have to be higher. So from a logic or screenwriting standpoint, it all works until they ruin it.
Right. I mean, I guess I feel like for the most part with these time loop movies, like once they figure out how to end the loop, that's the end of the movie. Whereas here, they get out of the loop and then there's a whole 20 minutes or something still to go where they have to defeat the aliens, and that part.
Which I'm okay with if they had stuck the landing.
Right. And I'm thinking like that in itself was sort of a bad approach, but we'll get to that later. Jason, had you seen this?
I think you and I saw it in the theater together.
Oh, that could be. I don't remember, but it might be.
Yeah, I liked it then. Like it now.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I definitely did see it in the theater, possibly with you, and I reviewed it. I checked, looked up my old review, and I definitely was positive about it. And I still like it. I think it holds up. It's one of those things where it could very well have been just people were refreshed by something, and maybe it's not as good as it was made out to be, but I do think it's good. I also will still recommend Oblivion, which I've seen more than once, which came out the year before. Dave, did you see this one when it was out in theaters?
Absolutely. Loved it back then. I've loved it every time I've seen it since.
Oh, and have you seen it many times?
At least 3 or 4 at this point. Yeah. So,
all right. Yeah, I hadn't.
I wanted to rewatch Oblivion for this just because it was that same era of Tom Cruise, but I just did not have a chance. But I'm looking forward to revisiting that sometime.
Yeah, I think it's underrated. I wrote an article about it a few years ago, and I thought it held up really well. It's got a great aesthetic, and Cruise is good. Andrea Riseborough. It's got some really interesting stuff in it. So maybe someday we'll do an episode on Oblivion. But for now, this is where we are. Anything else you want to say about the background of this movie, Jason?
All You Need Is Kill was going to be what was one of the working titles. Obviously, we all know the tagline "Live, Die, Repeat" is also one of the titles. That's the title they should have gone with. Edge of Tomorrow just is a weird title. Live, Die, Repeat. Very simple, right?
Right. Edge of Tomorrow, it's unclear what that even means. I mean, I guess it means like you're almost getting to tomorrow, but you're not. But yeah, when it was released on home video, that Live, Die, Repeat was sort of pushed as the tagline to the like more prominence. So it almost looked like it was the title, even though they didn't officially change the title or whatever. And I think in some places it's listed that way. But yeah, I mean, on the other hand, I feel like it's easy to blame something like that for failure. And I can't imagine it would have been such a major success if it had had a different title.
No, but I mean, maybe it would have helped nudge it. When I hear Edge of Tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken, I think of the Saved by the Bell, the New Class theme song. I'm standing on the edge of tomorrow. Today.
I have to admit that I'm not familiar with the Saved by the Bell, the New Class theme song.
I take it back. I misquoted myself. That is Saved by the Bell, the college years theme song.
Neither am I. I'm not of that. I think I would probably remember the original Saved by the Bell theme song.
When you wake up in the morning and the sun gets out of dawning and you think you didn't make it on time.
Because it was also the theme song to the Saved by the Bell reboot, which was not that long ago. And I did watch that.
It's all right.
Anyway, we'll come back and talk more of our general thoughts on Edge of Tomorrow. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 2014, we are talking about our cult classic pick, Edge of Tomorrow, a movie that we all enjoyed, which is nice.
Yeah.
So,
you know where I want to start, Josh?
Tell me.
Wherever you want to start. But I was going to say Doug Liman, underrated action director.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, Doug Liman has had a up and down career.
Fascinating is the word I would use.
It is kind of fascinating, and he's known for being eccentric. But I feel like that's probably perfect for a guy working with Tom Cruise, right? Who is also eccentric. And yeah, the action here is good. And I mean, one thing I like is that as Tom Cruise got into that phase that we're talking about, where he did become like the biggest star in the world again or whatever, and the savior of cinema, his movies, not only the Mission Impossible movies, but also Top Gun Maverick, and even ones like The Mummy that aren't about that at all, he became so fixated on these elaborate action sequences and stunts that it seems like the plot and characters become secondary to that. And that's really the case in the later Mission Impossible movies. But I never felt that here. I mean, there's cool action, but there's nothing in this movie that you would make like a little featurette about, like they do in Mission Impossible, like, oh, how did they do this stunt? And I think that's good. Like, it's just solid action. It does what the movie needs it to do in order to tell the story.
The featurette would be, how did Emily Blunt get so jacked? She looks awesome in this movie, right?
She does look quite fit, yes.
Yeah. I mean, I guess you could do a featurette on those body suits, which they when they first got in those like Universal Soldier suits, it took 4 people to get the actors in and out of them. Said Cruise, it took him a half hour every day until he got to the point where it was down to 30 seconds. But you're right about Tom Cruise in that he's at his best when he's at his most human, right? Like, and I think superhero Tom Cruise is the same way. Like, we love Top Gun and Top Gun Maverick because Tom Cruise is still a human being in those movies. So Mission Impossible, which we've covered some varying results on that, but you're right. Like when you think of A Few Good Men, those private scenes with him and Demi Moore late at night are like really resonant and really elevate the film.
Yeah, I mean, and there is a human story here. I mean, I think it was really smart. I don't know which of the many screenwriters thought of this, but to make the character into this cowardly guy who is not likable, right? At the beginning of the movie, he's trying to weasel out of going into combat while thousands of other people are dying to fight these aliens. And it's the kind of vulnerability and unlikability that you think Tom Cruise wouldn't necessarily be up for. But it really helps build the character, and it gives him an arc, and it sort of plays with the persona that Tom Cruise has as a big action star. And I think it's a really smart move.
I give you vulnerability, and I think, yes, that's when also he's at his best, the famous Jerry Maguire, Dorothy Boyd, you complete me scene. But I don't think he's unlikable at all in this. I think, first of all, I would agree with him.
Oh yeah, no, I would too, but it's not a likable position to take, is what I mean. And I don't think, the character is charming from the beginning. I mean, that's the point, right? Is that he's a charming guy so he can go on TV and sell this stuff. But the reason he does that is because he's a coward. And I think his decision is...
I don't think he's a coward. He literally says, I'm not trained for combat. Why would you put me on the front line? It doesn't make any sense to do that. All these other people are trained soldiers.
Yeah, but he's not trained for combat because he's avoided getting trained for combat.
He's a PR officer. What are you supposed to do? Like, your ad campaign is great, but you didn't run the obstacle course quick enough. Like, this is his job, man.
Right. No, I understand that. But I mean, I think the idea in the movie is that it's not like all of these people are elite soldiers. The aliens are going to take over the Earth. Everyone is in the army now, is in the military now. And he's managed to avoid being on those front lines. And I agree with you. Again, I'm with him. I would be doing whatever I could to avoid having to go fight aliens in person. But at the same time, I think the movie is showing you that this is his way of allowing other people to be put into danger for him. And that's what Brendan Gleeson's character, this general, is like not willing to tolerate. Like, oh, you don't. And initially, right, he's not even told to go into combat. He's just told, hey, we're going to put you
on the front line.
On the front lines, but, surrounded by soldiers who know what they're doing. And you don't have to fight. You just have to get footage for our PR campaign. And he says no. And it's only after that the general gets mad and says, fine, you're going to be in combat.
Well, Brendan Gleeson, one of our great actors, is a real knob in this movie, Josh. It's a real bell end, as they might say, over across the pond. But he's just an asshole who gets everything wrong the whole time.
I mean, he gets everything wrong because he doesn't have the knowledge of being in the time loop, which is really not fair to expect of him.
I'm just saying, he's an asshole who keeps getting things wrong. Every chance he gets, he slows down the progress of this thing.
Well, they do convince him eventually. He helps them.
No, he doesn't. He gives them the thing, and then he sends all the soldiers after him to arrest them. And
did he send the soldiers? See, this is actually a plot point that I was confused about. I mean, this is going toward the later part of the movie, but eventually they figure out that they need to get this doohickey and plug it into Cage so that they can find out.
Official awesome movie year term, dingus, please.
Dingus, that's true. Sure. Good point. Much like Humphrey Bogart. Yeah. They need to get the dingus so that they can plug it into Tom Cruise and find out where the big alien dingus is and they can blow it up. This is the issue with the climax of the film. But anyway, they do this, right? So they have to go through all these iterations to finally convince the general to give it to them. And they do. And he seems at that point completely convinced that they know what they're talking about. This is the right thing to do. He gives them the dingus. And then as soon as they exit the headquarters, right, all these soldiers attack them. And I did not get the sense that he had ordered that. In fact, I was wondering, I was like, why are they being attacked now? Because obviously the general is convinced that they're right. Why didn't he just tell people to let them go?
And I don't think that's what happened for two reasons. One, it's almost repetitious from the beginning where Cruise is like, hey, I was able to get all these people to sign up for the military. How hard do you think it would be for me to get them to blame you for the failures of the military? And then we don't really see anything. And then we see him wake up in basic training, right? So we haven't seen the Gleeson character verbalize that, but we've seen him act like that before. And then in this one, the other reason I think it's got to come from him is because he's with Rita, the most beloved heroic soldier of all of them. So why would any of these soldiers try to attack her unless it was ordered from the one guy in charge?
Right. But why would he? You're right. He's definitely he doesn't like Cage and he feels like he was tried to be blackmailed. And from his perspective, this guy was just there. But that whole scene, he is convinced. He's like, here's the thing. If he voluntarily gives them the thing and says, go do it, I believe you, why would he then immediately call the soldiers and be like, never mind, go get them?
Right. Unless the whole thing was like, hey, I'm going to give this to you and not tell you that I've already set the soldiers up to get you and just give this right back to me, I didn't
get that impression at all.
Well,
that doesn't make any sense.
Well, but look at the point of the movie we're in. This is the point of the movie where things stop working, right? So
Well, yeah, eventually, but not yet. And it just felt like they needed more action, like they needed more obstacles. They couldn't just walk out of there and go back to base. And so they needed people to attack them.
I don't get that. I felt like that doesn't make any sense either, though.
I mean, the movie needed that. Not the character.
Right. You're saying my explanation doesn't make any sense. I'm saying your explanation doesn't make any sense. And I don't blame either you or myself, Josh. I'm saying this is where the movie starts falling apart.
Right. But I just felt like that was such a basic cause and effect thing that could have easily been established. Either we could have shown a scene of the general betraying them, which I think wouldn't make sense, but at least it would explain it. Or we could have shown how he could have said, here, I'm going to give this to you, but I can't stop them from coming after you once you leave my office or whatever. And so I don't know. Dave, do you have thoughts on this?
I think they just needed another action sequence that was different from all the other ones.
Right. So that was what I thought.
And the action sequence is fine, but that's annoying because Josh just solved the problem in 4 seconds,
Right. Yeah, and that's why it is annoying because you could solve it so easily and they just don't.
Yeah.
So
that is frustrating.
But I mean, overall, I liked the movie. And I don't recall if that was something that bothered me the last time I watched it, But this time I was just like, why is this happening? It just doesn't make sense to me.
I mean, there's plenty of action. And that sequence isn't bad. You don't really need it in there. It's not like there had been a lack. Literally, the whole movie is action up until this point.
Right. But I think like what Dave is saying is that this is like a different location or a different kind of action that we can show.
It gives you a little car chase and,
it's in like a city instead of out in the countryside. Yeah.
It's a new level in the video game.
Right. Yeah. And this is very video game influenced, certainly.
Yeah. Even the way they shot it has a lot of video game kind of style to it.
Yeah.
Right. So, I mean, Jason, what other are there other aspects of this that you thought worked really well?
Yeah,
after we've nitpicked this one moment.
Yeah, the editing is great, right? I like how Cruise he said of the violent demises, he compared him to Wile E. Coyote and the Roadrunner, declaring, "It's fun to come up with new ways to kill yourself." So all the humor and him knowing that he's gonna die and like, no, like all that stuff is really fun. I think the sequencing of like, hey, I live this day already, and this giant ship's gonna fall into this soldier. So the next day I have to plan this. I think the logistics are like everything worked for me. Everything was like amazing for me until that last little part. So, if you're asking if there's anything I liked everything up until that point.
Right. Well, I just meant anything specific that you wanted to.
Well, I mean, like I said, Liman, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, and of course, Born Identity, right? So I think his action sequences are really good. I love the cheekiness of Tom Cruise, and he's also kind of a subordinate here, which is interesting, right? And Emily Blunt, as we said, is like a real action star in this. And the other thing, and we've talked about him before, like how much fun is Bill Paxton whenever you get to see him do something like that?
Right. I mean, and he's just kind of a one note, almost comic relief, right? He has this exaggerated Southern accent and he gives these grand speeches about the glory of war that he just gives over and over again because he's the first person or the second person that Cage sees every time he wakes up again. But he does have fun with that. And that is an enjoyable performance.
He's the Arlie Ermy, Full Metal Jacket character. So all these things I liked so much. I think, I know they built a beach. I like the settings and everything, as is typical of Doug Liman, just crazy overages on shooting. Didn't have all the aspects there. He had 2 extra crews working for 20 days straight just to get everything that he needed. That there was one sequence that was supposed to go, the beach shoots were supposed to go for 2 weeks. They went for nearly 3 months. So that's good,
I mean, and I think, one of the difficulties is if you're still writing the movie as you're shooting it, you end up going over your schedule or shooting things that you don't use or whatever.
This is the biggest point, Josh, and I'm glad you brought that up. Liman opted to finish the script during principal photography because they didn't have it. We have to learn this lesson, Hollywood, okay? It didn't work here. It never works in Marvel when they're writing on set. Like, you get once in a while, you get lucky with like, hey, we finished something. We see what doesn't work. Now we can fix it. World War Z is the prime example of that. But, if we're writing the ending on set, it's going to be a scramble and slapdash and not as much thought is going to be put into it, or maybe compromises will be made to be like, oh, that kind of works. Yeah, I could see that working. Like, and it deflates this whole film.
Right. I mean, I agree that it does. And I think I was maybe not as disappointed with it as you were, or didn't feel like it ruined the movie per se or as much. But it certainly loses a lot of its charm. And I think that charm is there, like you were saying. I mean, one of the things I loved, you mentioned, were the idea of him just having to be not only like dying unexpectedly, but he keeps having to be killed deliberately to reset things when they don't work. And you get to a point where Rita seems like really eager to just kill him, and he has to kind of stop her every now and then, including when the loop ends and he realizes if she killed him, he would really be dead. And she's just ready to go with that. And he's like, wait. And I like that. And one other aspect of the time loop that I really liked was there are certain instances where he's doing something and we've never seen it before. And then at a certain point, you realize, oh, we've skipped ahead and this is now like the 50th time he's done this or whatever. And I like that kind of kept you off balance. romance.
It was also smart, the relationships with him and J Squad, the relationship with him and Rita. Even the first time you meet Rita and he's explaining what's going on and she just says, "Find me when you wake up." And you're like, what? Like, it's all so well crafted and built upon itself, and the levels and the layering of it makes so much sense. And you know what I'm going to say next.
Right. And
so
the end,
it's such a bummer, man. It just bummed me out. So yeah,
it is. And I mean, I want to, before we get into that, also give praise again to Emily Blunt, who I feel like even with some of these female co-stars in the Mission Impossible movies, whether it's Vanessa Kirby or Haley Atwell or Rebecca Ferguson, Tandy Newton, who we talked about in our episode on Mission Impossible 2, as good as some of those people are, they're always overshadowed by the Tom Cruise-ness of it. And I think Emily Blunt is like, not only is she really good and holds her own with Tom Cruise, but they write a character for her who matters as much to the story, if not more, as Cruise's character. And that's really important.
She's the angel of Verdun.
Mm-hmm. She is.
But you know what? The point that I think, to play on what you're saying, is they wrote a character that's equal to him, but they found an actress who can play equal to him, right?
And
we
know both of those things are important.
Yeah, because he is an overpowering presence, right? But she, like I said, like physically, it's like fucking Stallone in Rambo, right? Like she just looks like what is going on, and then she holds up on all of that, and the strategizing, the kind of, this is what we have to do next, this is what's working, this is what's not working, the conflicts between them. Obviously you get like, and I know, Josh, you like the fact that there's definitely some sexual tension, but they never, kind of act on that and everything.
Right. Yeah. And I did appreciate that. I mean, there's one kiss that
it's like a goodbye kiss, though. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. It doesn't even feel particularly romantic.
Right. The only time you're almost getting to the romance, it leads to a really unique plot point, which is they're at this farmhouse. And, it's raining and they're both injured. And he says, let's just wait out the night instead of taking the helicopter. I made coffee, and he's making the coffee. And he goes, you like sugar? And it was 3 cubes, right? And she's like, oh, this son of a bitch, we've done this before. Why aren't we out there trying to save the world? And he explains like, hey, every time we try, you always die. And I'm not okay with that. And like, she's like, who cares what happens to me? That's not the point. And I thought that was really good. And again, layers and conflicts and kind of emotional resolutions and all that stuff was so good. And I think that's a great example of stuff we saw on the battlefield. Like, this is happening and now this is how we fix this, but here's another conflict and how do we get there? And him trying to get out different ways, him trying to deal with J Squad or Bill Paxton in different ways. All that stuff was clicking so hard for me.
Yeah, I agree. I think that stuff all works really well. And the moment you're talking about in the farmhouse, like, yeah, it could be read as romance, but it's almost just like it would apply even if there weren't romantic potential there, right? If this was a male character, heterosexual male characters, it's just he's become attached to this person after however many hundreds of iterations and cares about what happens to her. And not necessarily because he's in love with her, but because they've gotten this bond, but it's a weirdly one-sided bond, right? Because from her perspective, they've only known each other for a day, and that's always the case. So yeah, I feel like that scene really works. It doesn't have to be romantic. And as much as I could have done without the kiss, like you said, it's almost just like this goodbye kiss or this moment where it's just like, hey, we're going to die. And it doesn't feel like it's going to become this grand romance. And even though the very, very final shot of the movie shows that, and this is another confusing aspect, somehow there's another loop.
I don't
get
it.
Gone back even further.
I don't fucking get it.
And she's still alive. And the last shot is him kind of like smirking as he sees her. And you could imagine maybe now they could have this romance, but I don't think that that's the point. And so I was okay with that.
So I guess now we got to get into the ending.
Yeah,
right?
Let's talk about the ending.
They get to the point where he gets a blood transfusion because the soldiers fuck him over and everything, right? And Brendan Gleeson. And they're in the hospital and he says, hey, to her, you can't kill me because I don't have the blood anymore of the aliens. So one, I can't live it again. And 2, I can't see it anymore. So today's got to be the day that we do it, right? So they go and Josh, they recruit J Squad and they do all these crazy things of flying and sailing or driving an upside down plane to get into all these places. And then what happens, Josh?
Well, they blow up the dingus. I mean, that's what they do. And to be fair, they have clearly established that this is what you have to do to beat the aliens. You have to find where the big alien command thingy is and blow it up. And that's part of what they've been trying to do. And he's supposed to have these visions, and then he gets these visions that are wrong. And that's why they have to go get the dingus from Brendan Gleeson so that he can find out where it really is. So to be fair, we've established that this is the goal. It's just a very anticlimactic process in order to do it. And I think also because we're out of the time loop, there's none of the playfulness and the fun of it. And J Squad are barely characters. And suddenly now we got to care about whether J Squad are going to make it or not. And I didn't care about that at all. And yeah, and then he blows up the alien dingus and then they win. And it's just sort of like, oh, okay. And then he gets to go back in time also, which I don't even know why that's other than that we wanted Emily Blunt to be alive.
Right. That's even worse. So let's take that action sequence, which, as all those reviews alluded to, really looks murky compared to how good the rest of this movie looks, right? So that's problem number 1. Problem number 2, okay, fine, I don't care about J Squad that much, but they're there as pieces to kind of help us move the, puzzle closer to being complete. But the action itself wasn't as good as prior action sequences. All the stuff on the beach is way better than this stuff, right?
Right.
And then Emily Blunt says to him, hey, neither of us are getting out of here alive. So I'm going to go this way, distract him. The mimic's the alpha's going to eat me. You're going to swim down to the Omega, pull the grenade, and blow the thing up, right? It's Independence Day, right? Randy Quaid out flying right in there. So that's what he does. And then we see like part of, I guess, what's left of the Omega, like kind of attach itself to his face and like, oh, so now he's got Omega blood. So I guess that's the explanation of like how it can still be a time loop. But what doesn't make sense is we start back at the exact same day. And Brendan Gleeson is on the news saying, like, last night there was a power surge underneath, in the canals of Paris, and the aliens are all dead now. And then, so why is Tom Cruise there? How is that? How did what that took place later that day take place the day before now? None of this makes any sense to me.
Yeah, that day before is not part of the loop, and I think it could be read as like, and at first I thought this almost would be what was happening, like they didn't defeat the aliens. Like the fact that he goes back into a time loop is bad because it means the aliens reset time again, and they're going to learn everything. They're going to learn all about his plan and neutralize him. But it's played as a victory, as you said. Brendan Gleeson is on the news. He's saying all the aliens have died. Rita is alive, and Cage does not seem concerned. He gets this little smirk at the end. So, yeah, you're right. It doesn't really make any sense. It seems like they just were trying to grasp at something to give this a happy ending in all ways. And this is what they came up with. But it's not particularly satisfying.
It doesn't make sense. Also, why would Cage be sent back to, the kind of J Squad if the alien's already defeated? Why would he be there at all?
Well, he's not being sent to J Squad because we go even further back to before he was knocked down in rank. It's back to the beginning of the movie. Yeah, when he's still the PR guy. He's still a major. He's still the PR guy, and he's first arriving.
But why is he still sent to that base with Rita and the J Squad if he's a major?
Well, that's not where he is. He's not at the base with Rita and J Squad. He's at the headquarters.
No. I know that. But I'm saying he goes to Brendan Gleeson in the headquarters, right? That's what you're talking about. But the last
No, I'm talking about the very end of the movie.
The very end, he's back at that training ground where Rita is doing her yoga pose. No. Yes, it is.
At the very, very end. Yeah, but
so he's
right.
literally back
in the final.
Right,
because he goes there. He goes to the headquarters and sees Brendan Gleeson on TV and realizes the war has been won or whatever. And then presumably he, on his own initiative, travels to the base so he can see Rita.
Okay, I'll give you that. If you want it, it's a little unclear, but I'll give you that. But why would he think Rita would be alive at that point?
Well, because he's gone all the way back in time to the point where she was alive before the invasion and before she was killed.
I mean, none of this makes any fucking sense.
No, I agree, but I just think this is sort of the logic that they're working with.
Right.
So.
I mean, where it really lost me was anticlimactic action sequence. Now we're back at the beginning of the movie, and Brendan Gleeson is saying, last night the aliens were killed, and we're back at the beginning. And I'm like, well, how was that last night then? What? I don't understand any of that.
No, that's true. And I feel like we could have just had it, and it would have been almost more resonant if it was like, yes, he did defeat the aliens, but at the cost of Rita.
It would have been way better, right? Like the ending is like a 21 gun salute, and you guys will always be heroes or something.
Right. And I think that, I mean, it's a different setup, but I think that's like kind of how the book ends, where one of them is, and I think it's her, one of them has to be sacrificed in order to defeat the aliens. But I mean, this is my gleaning from the Wikipedia summary. But I mean, it seems like in the movie, they're probably high on the idea that there could be a sequel or whatever. And they're like, well, we need both these characters to be alive.
Yeah.
And
they ruined that. I mean, honestly, you could have done any bullshit. If we have if we're able to go in time loop and we're able to have like these super, soldier uniforms, they could have cloned Rita in a sequel if that's what they really wanted to do.
Right.
The earned thing there, Josh, is like what you said in the book. If she's the one who sacrificed, she literally says it at the farmhouse. Who cares about me? We have to complete the mission, right? So that's an earned sacrifice that you feel not good about, but like, okay, this is now a whole circle complete.
Right. And it's fully within her character that this is her motivation, and she's willing to sacrifice herself to do what is necessary to save the world from the aliens. So, Dave, do you have any thoughts on this or anything else? Anything you want to weigh in on here?
It makes no fucking sense, but I will say that it is so goddamn enjoyable up until that point that's why I just absolutely love this movie, whether the ending makes sense or not. I almost felt like the ending was the movie started over. Not the story within the movie, but Tom Cruise just saw Edge of Tomorrow because it started over. And now he knows like, oh, I fell in love with this girl in this movie. So I'm going to go visit her.
I don't even know what that fucking means. So I don't understand what you're saying. So,
I told you the ending makes no sense. That's period. End of story.
Yeah. I mean, to me that Josh, you've said the whole time, like, oh, I don't think it bothered you as much as it bothered me. It definitely bothers me. It's like, we've used the analogy, you have a great meal and then a terrible dessert, right? Like, if you fuck up the whole ending, it brings the whole movie down for me. And I loved this movie up until that point.
I mean, I'm not saying it doesn't bring it down a bit, but I think I enjoyed everything else enough that it didn't bring it down as much. And I think I was slightly less annoyed and frustrated with the ending than you. So, it gives me a level where I still enjoyed it mostly. So should we rate this out of 5 weird aliens or whatever?
5 super soldiers?
Sure, either one.
Yeah, man, I was at 4, possibly even, I was definitely at a strong 4 until the last 20 minutes. 3.5. The first, hour and 40 or 30 minutes are awesome. The last 20 minutes suck.
Yeah, I mean, I give it 3.5 also, but I think that was just sort of an across the board, positive for me. And that's what I gave it when it was released. I still think it's very entertaining. So that's a very positive rating for me. Dave, how do you rate this?
4.5 from me.
All right.
Yeah, still love this movie, even if the end doesn't make any sense.
Well, we'll come back and talk about the legacy of Edge of Tomorrow. Welcome back to Awesome Movie Year. In this episode of our season on the films of 2014, we are talking about cult classic Edge of Tomorrow. And we were just complaining about the ending, which seems in part at least designed for the idea that there could be a sequel. And of course, this wasn't a big enough hit to get a sequel greenlit right away. But it does have that reputation where in the subsequent years, they've been talking about a sequel. There have been various announcements that there might be a sequel. I think there have even been some scripts written. At this point, it doesn't seem like anything is a go. But Jason, as you were talking about Tom Cruise being the sort of savior of cinema, it feels like if he wants a project to happen, he can probably make it happen. So it still is a possibility.
They all say all the time they want a sequel, that they can't get their, schedules lined up. It was going to be a sequel that's a prequel, which has been done before, but that's cool. Doug Liman said it would revolutionize how people make sequels. Maybe we're just not ready for that sequel revolution, Josh.
Yeah, if that sounds like something Doug Liman would say.
But there was also going to be a TV spinoff, which to me, this makes great sense as a TV show.
I mean, I don't know, because how long can you keep the time loop going as a TV show? I mean, is every episode just going to be the same, stretch of time for an entire season of TV? I mean, I guess I do love Russian Doll, which is a time loop TV show, but that only worked for one season of short episodes.
Two seasons.
I'm not sure. Well, right. Well, and the second season was not
Spoiler.
as good. Yeah. And although there were aspects of the second season that were good, but it wasn't a time loop anymore either. In the second season, it was like a time travel kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I'm skeptical of that. But I would see the sequel, of course, if they made it. Because it's based on this novel that was already popular. In 2014, there were comic book adaptations of the novel, both in Japan and in the US. And there is a new movie, a Japanese animated movie called All You Need Is Kill, that just recently was premiering at film festivals and is going to be released in the US later this year. On the one hand, I think maybe it follows the book more closely, but on the other hand, it changes from both the book and this movie the perspective, so that Rita is the main character and the story is told from her perspective, and then the guy kind of comes in later. So I'm curious to see that. I'm sure it'll be out here sometime later this year, and it'd be interesting to see how they approach the story differently in that movie.
You'll have to give us an update, Josh, after you read it.
I will see the movie because it's a movie, and I won't read it. I guess maybe I'll read the subtitles.
Yeah, whatever. You can read a movie or see a book, whatever you want to do.
Sure.
So, yeah.
Sure.
I don't know. What do you want from me? So,
Doug Liman, as we said, kind of an up and down career, even after this. He does kind of these would-be blockbusters. Chaos Walking is one that Jason and we were talking about. That was one of these young adult novels that was trying to become a franchise and didn't. He did work again with Tom Cruise in American Made, which is a solid kind of true life thriller. It's not necessarily one of the most notable Cruise movies, but is decent. He recently directed the Roadhouse remake. He directed The Instigators for Apple TV with Matt Damon and Casey Affleck, which is not very good. I kind of have a weird soft spot for his movie Locked Down, his COVID movie with Anne Hathaway and Chiwetel Ejiofor that no one likes, but I think is actually quite good and has a great Anne Hathaway performance. He's done TV. He directed a documentary about Brett Kavanaugh in 2023. Yep. And he's got a couple of potential Tom Cruise projects. In addition to the Edge of Tomorrow sequel, they're maybe working on an underwater thriller called Deeper, and supposedly going to shoot a movie in space.
Yeah, I mean, what he has shot, which I think is coming out, is Everest, which is British mountain climber George Mallory makes multiple attempts, perhaps time loop, to scale Mount Everest throughout the 1920s. Yeah.
Why not?
But, I mean, it's, I think there's going to be multiple, like we talked in the last episode on Tenzing. There's going to be multiple Mount Everest movies.
Right. I was like, didn't we just mention this movie?
Yeah. So, but I obviously, I mean, he's kind of fascinating. He's made some great movies, and it's interesting that a guy that everyone says is so difficult and never comes in on budget makes good enough movies where he keeps getting hired over and over again.
Right. And I was reading some excerpts from the Alan Sepinwall's book about the OC, which Doug Liman directed the pilot for. And there's all these crazy stories about how weird Doug Liman is and how, they were shooting on a boat one time and he was like, I'm late for a meeting. And he jumped off the boat and swam to shore. And he would like sleep on the set in Ben McKenzie's character's bed, or no, Seth Cohen's bed overnight. He would sleep because he identified with Seth Cohen so much and all this weird stuff. And then all of the people, they're like, but we love him. He's so great. He's awesome. So whatever weird stuff he does, people are kind of vibing with it.
As the only one who's acted for him on this podcast, I can only say
I knew we had to get to that.
My experience in Go, nothing but professional. Josh, good stuff.
And of course we did discuss Doug Liman, and I'm sure your story about being in Go in our episode.
We did
on
we
Swingers
can move on from that. So
Yeah, and we've talked about Tom Cruise
a lot,
a bunch of times. We've done episodes on A Few Good Men and Eyes Wide Shut and Mission Impossible 2. Of course, he became, an even bigger action star here. And we just mentioned his next project, which is a Alejandro González Iñárritu film when we did our episode.
Yeah, and we've talked about him and McQuarrie, who was one of the writers on this, and they seem to have some original content coming out, not just IP. So we've mentioned that. I mean, what Emily Blunt is really setting herself up to be, even go to the next level. Because I looked at her like next 5 movies that are coming out: Devil Wears Prada 2, Smashing Machine, which is the kind of Mark Coleman Oscar play of this year for A24, right? The MMA fighter, and then she's in both the new Scorsese and the new Spielberg movie.
Yeah, and that the Scorsese movie, is that the Hawaii crime movie that he's supposed to do?
Yeah, so the Rock must like her because that's what their third time. That'll be their third time working together because of Jungle Cruise.
Which I like.
No,
do you like? I do. Jungle Cruise was one of those movies, was kind of fun until they all say like it's not nearly as good as this. But that's another one where they clearly did not know where the story was going to go, and it just kind of goes off the rails there.
I mean, I think we've mentioned stuff like Your Sister and 5-Year Engagement. She's capable of much more than just franchise stuff, and obviously she's a big star and has to or wants to do that stuff. But she's way more interesting when she's acting as opposed to movie starring.
I agree. And she has been movie starring a lot. I mean, you didn't even mention the Quiet Place franchise, which she is the central part of. And there's going to be a third one of those. And she did get an Oscar nomination for Oppenheimer.
Which was ridiculous.
It is. Not that she's not good, but that wasn't
that part had
an
nothing.
Oscar.
Yeah.
Yeah. I really enjoyed her in The Fall Guy. She's got great chemistry with Ryan Gosling in that. But I agree. I think, and maybe The Smashing Machine will be good, but just from those trailers, she's like that SNL character, the girlfriend of the boxer in the boxing movie.
That's funny.
That's all that she's got going on in that movie, it seems like.
Yeah.
So I hope there's more to it than that.
Yeah, I mean, look, as I've said on every podcast that the three of us do together, I have no faith that The Rock's ever going to do a good movie, though I think he could. Right. So, I mean, I hope this is good. Who knows, right? It's a Safdie who we know Dave loves, but but I do feel good about her with Scorsese and Spielberg. That could be some good stuff coming, right?
Yeah, I think so. And I mean, those are different. The Scorsese film is a crime thriller, and the Spielberg movie is some sort of sci-fi thing. So totally different types of things for her to do.
Razzmatazz is what that is, Josh.
Sure. We were talking about Bill Paxton. This was one of his final films. He only had a few things after this and died in 2017. So, sad that we lost him because he was always so fun to watch. Right. A great character actor, so many different parts and everything.
If he was alive today, he would, I mean, he did Big Love, but you could see him living in that limited series space and just owning it, right? Like he would just be so great for that. Like kind of like Billy Bob is doing a lot of that stuff now. And now it's become a, more of a series, but just really good. Yeah. Bill Paxton was awesome. So.
Yeah, and as we said, he's got a limited role here, and he kind of just has to keep doing the same thing over and over again. But he's good enough that you're entertained to watch him say those same lines again and again.
It's almost unfortunate that on the beach when we see the aliens killing him, we didn't get a game over, man.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like it's good that they restrained themselves from that.
Yeah, well,
so. Do you have any favorite time loop movies, Jason?
Yeah, I mean, I love Groundhog Day. I think Groundhog Day is basically it's a perfect movie to me. So we've talked about, I think, Palm Springs on the podcast, which we all like, and then the Frank Grillo one from the
Boss Level.
Yeah, that was pretty fun.
That was fun.
Yeah. So those would be the three that I would mention. Did I miss any, Josh?
Well, I mean, there's lots of different ones, but I don't know any that you would, that are your favorites per se. I also, of course, Groundhog Day is sort of the original, and that's great. I love Palm Springs as well. I like Happy Death Day, both the Happy Death Day movies a lot. Those are a lot of fun. And there's a Japanese film recently called River. That's just like an absolutely brilliant use of the time loop concept, where the time loop is 2 minutes long. and each version of it is a single take in the film. And there's like 43 iterations of the 2-minute time loop or something. Very, very clever film. And I have a soft spot for Meet Cute with Kaylee Cuoco, which not a lot of people liked, but I thought was also.
Oh, is that the one with Pete Davidson? And
yeah,
it's all right. So I have this Christmas movie out, and the whole concept was, how do you do a time loop movie without a time loop, which we figured out because we wrote an ending. No, I'm just kidding. But yeah, so hopefully that goes somewhere. We'll see what happens. But I do. Yeah, I mean, time loops are hard to pull off. They become really hacky unless you're really good at it.
Right. I mean, and I think this is up there. If you're making a list of the best time loop movies, you would certainly put this on there too. So, Dave, do you have any other favorites?
I was just going to say Happy Death Day like you did, but yeah, this probably is my favorite time loop movie. So yeah.
Yeah,
that's silly bitch.
Fair. No, I mean, I understand that. I wouldn't put it as my favorite per se. I mean, I'd probably pick Palm Springs, but I feel like it's a legit choice.
I'm going Groundhog Day, of course.
Also great.
That's great.
Have we talked about Brendan Gleeson?
I'm not sure if we have. Yeah, I mean, he doesn't have a lot to do in this film, but he always brings it wherever he is, and he's another one who, like Bill Paxton, just constantly working.
One of the great working actors. I would love to dig back into more of like the Irish films that he's made, Cavalry and stuff.
Oh, he's in Mission Impossible too.
Then we probably did talk
Tom
about
Cruise.
Him there. Yeah. So.
No.
And, obviously, I think the team ups for McDonough with our guy, Colin Farrell, have been his biggest thing. In Bruges and Banshees of Inisherin are the two that I would say. But, Josh, I thought you would be excited. He's in the new Henry Selick movie, The Shadow King.
Well, that's good. Is that movie actually happening? I feel like Henry Selick has all these projects that are supposed to go forward and that they don't. That poor guy, because it takes so long and so much time and effort to make stop motion films that these things fall apart for him.
Yeah, but this sounds like a great project for it. A New York orphan who can use his long fingers to make shadow puppets uses them to fight evil shadow monsters to save New York City.
Yeah, hey, if that goes forward, I'm all for it. I'm happy to see that. So that is Edge of Tomorrow, and that is this episode of Awesome Movie Year. Start it over again for a time loop
Jason
experience.
Harris, filmmaker, comedian,
Yeah.
and we've done this episode 10 times already.
You can time loop us online and on social media.
Yeah, and if we missed any time loop movies, let us know. I'm Jason
please.
Harris Comedy or Jay Harris Comedy and all the things. Go for Jason. Send me those Letterboxd recs. We're at awesomemovieyear.com, Awesome Movie Year on Facebook and the Gram.
You can find some old stuff from me at joshbellhateseverything.com. I am at Josh Bell Hates Everything on Facebook, at Signal Bleed on Blue Sky and on Letterboxd. And if you're on Letterboxd and you watch this movie or any of the movies we talk about on the show, tag your review Awesome Movie Year. We would love to know what you think. And check out our producer, David Rosen's awesome podcast, Piecing It Together.
Check out Piecing It Together wherever you listen to podcasts and follow us on social media at Piecing Pod.
Jason, what's in our next episode?
Listen to me. I have a very special set of skills. I use them in movies. You've chosen one of my movies to cover. It's our Liam Neeson audience choice pick, and you, the audience, chose A Walk Among the Tombstones.
So tune in next time for A Walk Among the Tombstones, and thanks for listening to Awesome Movie Year.
Thank you for listening to Awesome Movie Year. Make sure to follow Awesome Movie Year on Facebook, at Awesome Movie Pod on Twitter, and at Awesome Movie Year on Instagram. And if you like the show, review us and rate us with 5 stars on Apple Podcasts.
An All Points West production, produced by David Rosen in Las Vegas.